In today's video, I'm going to show you how to paint this cute gingerbread house with a teeny tiny cat using digital watercolor on your iPad. If you're interested, please keep on watching. Hello and welcome to Color with Kendi. On this channel, I paint with digital watercolor and gouache, and we paint on the iPad in the app Procreate. And Procreate has made such a big difference to the way I approach art, and my goal with this channel is to share what I know. If you're interested in the supplies that I'm using for today's video, be sure to check that out. You can find the list in the pinned comment as well as the description. Let's begin. For today's video, we are doing a screen recording because it's far more accurate when it comes to the colors and the textures. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up the Amazing Watercolor canvas, texture number 2. This is a medium-sized canvas. It's 8 by 10 inches. And then I'm going to import the traceable as well as the color palette. So I'm just going to tap on the layers panel, and then I'm going to turn off this layer by clicking on that checkbox. And then I'm going to tap right up at the top, and then we're going to do the import. I like to import both the traceable and the color palette on top because the color palette remains more accurate that way. If you import the color palette below the texture overlay, it will alter the colors a little bit. So I try to avoid that. So just tap on the top and then tap on the wrench icon and make sure that you're on add and insert a photo or a file. Okay, so I have imported the traceable as well as the color palette, and now I'm just going to zoom in so you can see. I want to keep the line art for this particular illustration. Usually I don't use the line art and I reduce the opacity and then do my own line art or just omit the line art, but I think the line art would make it look a little cuter, so I'm just going to keep that line art. So the first thing that we're going to do is just go to the layers panel and tap on the paint here layer. And let's start out with the easiest thing first, which is the stars. And then we will do the gingerbread house, and then we'll do the Christmas trees at the bottom and the cat. So you can skip around depending on what you like. So I'm just going to grab this color right here, and then I'm going to go to the brush library and select a brush. So I am going to keep it relatively simple for the stars. So we're going to go in with Simple Water Pigmented. It has a little bit of texture, but not too much because we will be adding a little bit more later on. So let's just go in, and with this brush, depending on how much pressure you apply, you will get a little bit of a thinner line or a thicker line. So let's just paint in the stars. So I'm going to go in with a smaller size, size 8, and just paint them in. So at this point, we're not really trying to add too much texture. It's very minimal. And we will be adding more later on. So those are all the stars. So we've done the base color. Now I want to add a little bit of color variation, the color variation that you typically see with watercolor. So I'm going to go to the layers panel, tap on plus so I can create a new layer, and then I'm going to tap on that layer and then tap on clipping mask. So now whatever I do in this clipping mask layer will only show up on the layer underneath that we've just painted. Go to the color menu and shift the hue so it's a little bit closer to orange, not too much, and then maybe make it a tad darker by going down at a diagonal. And now you can go in with any brush of your choice, but I really love to use this Pigment Bleed Overlay brush, brush 32. I'm going to go down a little bit more in size and just tap. There we go. Hint of color variation wherever I want it. So the stars are done. Now let's work on the background. So for the background, I'm just going to zoom in and grab this color. For the background, I'm going to use brush number 33. So let me just show you off to the side how it works. So I am at size 20. So if I apply light pressure and change the pressure a little bit, it will look like that. So it has a little bit of an interesting edge, and depending on how much pressure you apply, you can get more pigment or less pigment. Just keep your pencil on the screen. Okay, so let's go in with a slightly larger brush size 55, and I'm just going to, actually maybe even a little bit larger. Maybe I'll just go to size 100, and I'm going to start to add light pressure and some pockets of heavy pressure just around the gingerbread house. And at this point, if you want to erase parts of it, you can. So what I will do is I will go to the Erase menu using the same brush set. I'm going to use eraser number 5, brush number 5, and just erase away some of that. Okay, so that's cleaned up now. I do want to add a little bit more color variation to the background. So let's do this in another layer. So we have our background layer. Let's tap on plus right above it and create a clipping mask. I love to use clipping masks. So that way you can create your base shape and then add more fun effects on top. So I'm just going to grab this pink and I'm going to go in with this pigment bleed overlay brush, brush number 32, and maybe make this a bit bigger and just add, I'm just going to tap, just gently tapping. Do you see it's adding a little hint of color variation? Not too much, just tap in certain areas. That is all. I don't want to make it too intense. I just wanted to add a little color variation. So now we're done with the stars and we're done with the background. Now I want to move on to the gingerbread house. So I'm going to go to the layers panel and I'm going to go right above the stars layers, that clipping mask layer that we had, and tap on plus to create a new layer. Then I'm going to tap on the layer and I'm going to rename it to house. We can paint in directly like we did with the stars. We can paint with brush number 8. That's an option. Or we can use a slightly different technique. So what I'm going to do, which I find a lot easier, I'm going to use the shape maker method. So I'm going to create the outline of the house, then I'm going to fill it in with color drop. So that way I can create a shape and then I can add watercolor effects on top. So I'm going to select brush number 27. And what I'm going to do is just go around the edges. I'm trying to do this as cleanly as possible, but it's not going to be perfect. That's okay. So I'm just going to go around the edges like this. So we've completed the outline of the shape, and now we can take the color from the color menu, put our pencil on the screen, and then drag that color and drop it. And it will completely fill in the shape. Now it has painted over some of the areas like the window as well as the hearts, but what we can do is we can just erase those areas. So now we have our gingerbread house shape. What we're going to do is convert it to white, and then we're going to add our fun effects. So just go to the adjustments panel, hue, saturation, brightness, and up the brightness slider all the way to max. So now it looks like there's nothing there. But if you look at your layers panel, you do have your house shape. That shape was important to create. Now let's tap on plus and then tap on the layer, make it a clipping mask. And now you can do all of your fun watercolor effects. So you can use any brush of your choice. I'm going to go in and grab this color. And now I'm going to start out with brush number 30. So this is just a very simple wash of color and it doesn't have too much texture. So I'm going to go all the way to 100. So that's now our base color done. And now what you can do is you can go in to the layers panel, tap on plus again, make it a clipping mask. And now we can start to add more and more fun effects on top. So what I want to do is maybe add a little bit more of a saturated color. So I'm going to change the color in the color menu. I'm keeping the same hue, just making a little bit more saturated and darker. And then I'm going to go in with brush 33, which we used earlier, and just vary my pressure. So some areas are a little bit more pigmented and some areas have a little less pigment. So just add that color variation wherever you feel like. So you can stop there or you could keep adding more pigment. So there's this brush number 36, grainy pigment overlay. I'm going to do this in another layer in case I decide not to use this. So tap on plus, clipping mask, and I'll go a little bit darker with this brush. And then I'm going to zoom in and with light pressure, just apply that pigment here and there. So you could stop here or you could try something a little bit different. So because we have made the shape of the house, that shape is already there, we can keep on adding new clipping mask layers and change up the look. So basically you don't have to repaint anything. So let me show you. So I'm going to turn off all of the layers that we just added. And I'm just going to keep the house layer. I'm going to tap on plus and let's try a slightly different look. So this is purely optional. I am going to use a different brush set, the stamps brush set, and I'm going to show you something that will end up looking quite different. So the stamps brush set has all these texture blocks and I'm just going to select texture block number 4. You can select any of them. And I'm going to go to the largest size and just tap right in the center, and that will create a very different look. So you can play around with the stamps as well to create a house that has a different vibe. Maybe that's a bit too dark. Change the color. You can create something that's a little bit simpler too, like this. So this was brush number 2 in the stamp set. So the point is, once you have created a shape, it is so easy to play around and change up the look. And that's what I really love about painting digitally, especially using the shape method. If we were to paint that gingerbread house directly, it would have been a little bit harder to change the look entirely. But because we painted a shape that was pure white, it didn't have any texture in it, it allows us to change up the look very easily. So now I want to paint in some of the red elements in the house. So I'm just gonna go and grab this color here and maybe make it a little bit darker. And then I'm going to go back to the Amazing Watercolor brush pack and go to brush 16. You can also use brush 8. And then I'm going to go to the layers panel and go right above the last clipping mask layer of the house and tap on plus. And then I'll call this details. So I'm going to paint in some of the details of the house in this one. And as you can see with this brush, when you paint in a larger area, you will see more of that color variation, some lights and some darks. It's harder to see with smaller elements. So what else can I paint red? Maybe I can paint this portion of the windows red too. So let's go to the smudge library, and I'm going to go to smudger number 6. And with size 3, just going to smudge out some of that overlap. This same brush, brush 16, I'm going to paint this in. So I'm going to continue adding some details. So what I'm going to do is start to add in the pigment while lifting the pencil several times, just to make it look a little bit more interesting. If I did not lift my pencil and just lay down the pigment, it would be flat. Now I'm going to lift the pencil and lay down some more pigment. It's not as flat. So I'm just going to continue and paint in those windows. So there's a little bit of visual interest there. The windows are done, and now I want to continue adding a little bit more detail to the house. On that wreath. And now it's time to start working on the Christmas trees. So let's go to the layers panel and let's tap on plus and call this trees. And for the Christmas trees, I'm going to select this color again, grab it. And for the trees, I'm going to use brush number 14. Just paint in the tree using multiple strokes. Like that. And paint in the candy canes. And paint in the stairs. Okay, and now what I want to do is paint in a little bit of the snow. So right now the snow is pure white. You can leave it at that, or you can add a little hint of color, which is what I want to do. And I'm going to use a very pale color with brush number 13. Make a few lines like this, just curved lines here and there. And what we're going to do is we're going to smudge that out. And I'm remaining beneath the lines that we just created. I'm not smudging above them. So I want to add a little bit of splatter to the background. So I'm just going to go to the dilute splatter brush, brush 45, and I'm going to go to the color menu and double tap at the 10 o'clock position and get pure white. And let's see. So what if I add some splatter all over? I kind of like that effect, so let's try that out. And just add it with light pressure all over the screen. Do you see it's adding that splatter? I like that effect. Kind of cool. It looks like it's snow. And maybe in another layer, I'll tap on plus, I will add a little bit more with brush 44, pigmented splatter. I really do like that. So now at this point, you can decide to change a few things if you'd like, or keep it as is. So yeah, I'm going to stop now. And that is it for today. We are done with this painting. So let's have a look at what we made together. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have any questions, you can always send me an email or leave a comment below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!